Good to go.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this Cloud Foundry Community Advisory Board meeting for Wednesday, September 16th. We'll go through the usual updates, starting with, I'm hoping Chip to give us some Cloud Foundry Foundation highlights and updates, including the CFU Summit, which is coming very soon.
Yeah, so real quick, I mean, this is sort of the usual thing, right? We've got a summit coming up. It's going to be fun. October 21st and 22nd. The North American event was 2 days, but kind of one track. This is going to be 2 days and with 2 tracks plus a lot of side activities. So we're really excited about it. We think that we learned a lot from the first virtual summit that we held earlier in the year. We've picked a slightly different platform that should be a little bit more modern, but the same basic thing applies. The word of the event is all about collaboration. So we're trying to find ways to help the amazing people who have volunteered to be the track chairs look through the proposals to make sure that really as many of the talks as possible help inspire collaboration. Help inspire kind of follow-on discussion, trigger good Q&A sessions, post the pre-recorded part of their talks. So hopefully it will improve from what we did in North America. Anybody who's a contributor, and this is kind of a very vague, purposefully statement about what is a contributor, right? It doesn't require code contribution. If you have help with docs, if you send an issue in, if you're hanging out on Slack and helping an end user who shows up, any of those things, those are amazing contributions. They're all valuable. So feel free to register using that code for free. The second thing is lots of you touch end users. Those of you that work for a member who may have a bit more of a formal process for sharing things like our user survey, you may very well be covered, but if you're touching end users, customers, and otherwise, please help us get the word out about the user survey. That data is actually, I think, really important, right? So we always try to collect something that provides meaningful information that could be used by the project itself to help it understand the user base in a bit more of a quantitative way that spans again, the information that you might get if you work for one of the vendors, through your own product management processes, right? Because this will hopefully give a bit of a more global view. So those are the two, I would say major focuses that I wanted to share here at the CAB call from the CFF. Just for fun, I tossed out there an interesting tweet from Eddie, he is the program manager for cloud.gov, which is the US federal government's Cloud Foundry based service. We were having a discussion about air quality, and one of the highest use sites right now out of all the US federal government properties is airnow.gov, which is in fact hosted on cloud.gov. So a little interesting insight. Anything that's cloud.gov hosted, you can think of that as something the CF community has helped support get out there for at least for the value of US citizens.
Eric did a fun test checking to see if it'll return VCAP request ID in the header.
I'm sorry, what was that, you?
Yui was saying that I had a short command line snippet that was checking whether the Go router was there and returning the VCAP request ID header, and it is.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's I'm pretty sure there's some caching in front of it, but still, we should be proud about that. So nice work, everybody who's worked on Cloud Foundry.
It's a tremendous kudos to see something that people are really depending on right now being served up by Cloud Foundry. I was very proud when I saw that tweet. Okay, if there's nothing else from the foundation, let's kick things off with your always comprehensive PMC updates from app runtime to start with.
Hey, thanks, Troy. Yeah, sure. So as you can see, we've got a few highlights here across the various projects. So one of those that's maybe the most visible is new minor versions of both the V6 and V7 CLI. I think this is intended to be the last version of V6 to be released that's addressing some bugs and a few features. And so my understanding is from now on, the CLI team is going to be releasing only major version 7 updates. And then
quick question. Is there the possibility that we would still see critical security things if they should appear?
I don't know for sure, but given our history of security, I would imagine that's still plausibly in scope. That might be something we could check with
And
Zach
we can
and Josh.
probably, yeah, might want to. That might be something as an ad hoc basis as they come up. We could discuss them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I could see those even being just patch versions on this latest V6 minor version.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks, Troy. Good question. And then we've got incremental updates from both CF for Kates and kubecf with some nice updates. I think coincidentally both relating to base image stack support. We have the basic functionality of updates working in CF for Kates now, and there's some really interesting new multi-stack support in kubecf. And then yeah, continuing some of the project updates, Cappy's been doing some work recently to move even more content out of the traditional blob store object store that they've used for files and into the OCI image registry in CF for Kates. So they're moving the assembled @bits packages into that registry. So at this point, the only thing that the blob store will contain is the cache of files for resource matching. So they're thinking about how they want to address that in the future, but it's looking like in the medium term that dependency is going to go away entirely from the set of resources that you need to use to run CF for Kates with Cappy containerized that way, relying on Kpack. And some other nice things that have closed out. Irene's been doing a track of work on supporting application tasks, the one-off tasks, and that's all now complete and in the latest versions of Irene. And they've also been doing some work to inject the CF instance index environment variable into application containers when they're running as pods on Kubernetes. This is something that we've generally regarded it as a somewhat questionable practice doing any kind of reliance on that, but we do know that there are some libraries that are going to look for whether they're index 0 or not to optimize running their database migrations when they're bootstrapping, that kind of thing. And then updates from a couple other teams. Networking has continued to do some work on scalability of Istio and their interactions with it. And also now that we have this route CRD serving as an intermediate layer in the architecture, they're exploring the possibility of plugging in some other ingress systems in behind it, such as Contour. And then also logging in metrics, they've been continuing to do some work to improve the performance and scalability of the log cache component as they've uncovered some ways in which it's somewhat inefficient at, I think, egress and handling some of the ingress from components. So I think they're making some good forward progress on that.
Thank you. Kevin, since we're on the call, any news from the BOSH world?
Hello. We're still just working through stuff. A quick note to the community that there was a high CVE on the Linux kernel. So we have a new stem cell that came out last week. So if you are planning to do a stem cell bump, this is a good one to bump up to already. And other than that, we're just continuing with getting some more releases ready, but nothing yet to announce.
Okay. Likewise, I have very short updates from the extensions PMC because we haven't met in a long time and I haven't yet gathered everyone together. So we have a meeting coming up which I should announce now, 11 a.m. Pacific on September the 28th. And I will try and be reminding all the project leads to at least give me updates that. So then the following CAB call, I'll have more for you. But I do, because I talk to the Stratos team all the time, they have 2 releases coming up. And I don't want to steal CF Marketing's thunder, but there is something special coming with 4.2. Chip, can I let the folks know?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so SUSE has been maintaining extensions for Kubernetes in our downstream release of Stratos for a while. We are donating those to the foundation as a 4.2, which should be just before the CF Summit. You heard it here first, and so this exposes a whole bunch of Kubernetes features that you can try out.
Yeah, that should be neat. Hey, before you move on, I actually want to interject here. I realized Yui's amazing because she caught something that I forgot. In addition to asking for help with the user survey, the other thing that we all want you to spend time thinking about and then typing and submitting forms for us is the community award nominations. So I tossed that into the notes up above. There's a post that you can click through to give us some nominations, but this is an opportunity to nominate your peers, nominate the people that you've worked with that have done really interesting things for the community, whether it's as a contributor, whether it's an awesome end user story, whether it's someone who's done a really good job advocating for the project. That's always a lot of fun. And so please take some time, think about it, and share your nominations.
Great. If someone wants to paste that in the chat, that would be good too. I'm lost in my own screen share. Okay. I did some last minute scrambling so that we'd have some presentations to talk about now. I saw some really good ones yesterday in the Kubernetes SIG meeting, and asked a couple of those folks if they would like to present today for a wider and slightly different audience. So I'd like to ask Payali if she can, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Awesome. If you could show all of the folks on this call what you showed all the folks on yesterday's call, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm actually also here with Paul, who I co-presented with yesterday.
Right.
And Paul is currently the interim PM for Relent, driving the CF for Kate's initiative. And yeah, he's probably going to give an introduction.
Thanks, Piali. Yeah, so in the BOSH-based CF deployment, application stack updates were provided to the platform through new CF Linux BOSH releases, as we all know, that Diego then acted upon using the base file system contained therein to patch all the pushed apps simultaneously. However, in this new Kate's world, we don't have a BOSH, and therefore we don't have a CF Linux BOSH release, or in fact a Diego. So how will these application stack updates occur? We'd like to demo recently completed work by the CAPI team that brings this vitally important feature to CF for Kate's, and to talk through the feature roadmap from here, how we plan to provide a better operator experience, and how we plan to expose metrics to the operator, allowing them to troubleshoot when things perhaps don't go quite as expected. So I'd like to hand over to Piali, who can do the demo for you. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Paul. I will share my screen right now. All right, is this font good for everyone? Font size? Cool. So just to explain what these 4 windows you see in front of you are, on the top left, I will be basically performing the actions that an operator would do to actually carry out and trigger a stack update in CF for Kate's. And on the top right, I will show you the stack. Actually, I could just show you right now what stack we're currently on. So if I go to the spec section, and specifically this run image, as you can see, we're on 0.0.51 for this run image. And for the build image, we are on 0.0.50, and the build image and run image are separate. But in today's demo, we're only going to be changing the run image, but you can change both if you want. And on the bottom left, we have images. So in CF for Kates, for those who don't know, we're using KPack to actually build the images for the apps, the OCI images for the apps, and pushing them to an app registry. And basically, the general flow of a CF push is that Irene will then essentially take those images and put them into stateful sets, which manage the pods that run the app workloads. So on the bottom right, I have the stateful sets that are actually managing the app workload pods. And I tried to give a good mix. So I have an app with 20 instances, and I have a couple with 1 instance, and I have one with 5 instances, just to show roughly how fast this happens. So when I will trigger the stack update, all I'll have to do is this kube control patch command, and I will change this to 0.0.52. So say the operator sees that there's a minor patch version available that'll take care of some security vulnerabilities, then they'll want to immediately patch instead of waiting for the next BOSH release, for example, in the previous world. So now they can easily patch whenever there's a new stack update available, and they could just run this kube control patch command. And after the stack is patched, then basically the KPack flow gets triggered immediately, and the images all get rebased by KPack onto the new stack. And that's what you see on the bottom left, where all of the images went green. And I can show you one example of what this would look like. So if we take this image, for example, and we go down to the status section, we'll see that there's a latest build reason and a latest image section. So the latest build reason here is stack, which means that this build was only done because of a stack update, and only because of a stack update. And for this latest image, you'll see that there's the OCI image reference that points to the latest build image by KPack, which includes the new stack in it. And the reason that this is important is because the way that CAPI is now handling it, rather than Diego and BOSH in the previous world, is that CAPI has a new component called CF API controllers. And also on the bottom right, by the way, you can see that the stack update is actually happening in front of your eyes. K9s is really cool to show you that in real time. But basically, CF API controller component that I'll show you is optimizing the Kubernetes rolling update strategy for stateful sets to carry out the stack update. And that's what you see over here. This will probably be a good example because it has 20 instances. But you can see that one at a time, these pods are being rebased, basically, and are actually getting restarted with this new stack. And on the top right, I can show you the new component. So for observability, if the operator wants to know what's happening today, they can go to the CF API controllers. And they can go to the manager logs. Hopefully I'll be able to find. So here are all of the actions that are currently happening from our CF API controller. So what it does is basically every time there is an update or some level of event that happens to the image resource, the CF API controller image controller would basically process that event and carry out some actions accordingly. So for example, when it sees that there is an image updated and specifically updated with this stack build reason, the image controller will then carry out and actually update the stateful set directly. So there's no involvement with Irene yet on this flow. The API controller is directly updating the stateful set with the new OCI image reference that comes from KPack. And this will change shortly in the future. We are planning on optimizing Irene's new LRP that they're developing to update the LRP directly so that Irene will remain as the only component that's interacting with the stateful sets. But for now, the API controller is directly updating the stateful set. And we also have a couple other future tracks of work that are really exciting that are coming up soon. One is you can see that observability is pretty difficult to be trailing all these logs through API controllers. So we're going to be developing a better way for operators to understand the progress of the stack update. And even though like the bottom right canines window is pretty cool where you could actually visually see it, but it would be good to have some metrics on what's going on so that the operator can go and troubleshoot if something goes wrong, for example. And we also have another feature coming up to support rollbacks, app rollbacks. For example, if a developer wants to roll back to a previous revision of the app, that revision may not have been packaged with the new version of the stack. It may have been packaged with a previous version of the stack, but as a developer and as an operator, it's also in their best interest to have all the security patches, even with an older version of the app. So rather than what they would have to do today, which would be to restage and repush the app so that it would have the newer stack, our new feature would enable automatic rebasing of previous revisions as well, so that when the app developer rolls back to a previous revision, they would not have to repush and restage. And yeah, so those are some exciting pieces of work coming up. And as you can see, while I was doing the demo, the stack update completely finished for all of the apps in the workload space. Are there any questions?
Great job, Piali.
Thank you.
So cool. I mean, this is something that I know customers really are, or people who are interested in Cloud Foundry and operators that are thinking of adopting it when they realize that they can do this kind of update and update underlying container images without touching the code en masse in an automated fashion. It's one of the secret sleeper awesome features of Cloud Foundry that make it really enterprise ready. And so I'm really glad to see this is up and going in CF4K world and in Irene, or with Irene, I should say.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Thank you, both of you, Paul and Piali. If Mario's here, please could you speak up and maybe share your screen and tell us a little bit about Quarks secret. I copy pasted something in it in the agenda. It says new Quarks secret feature, but it's a new Quarks secret feature.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not really new. I talked about it yesterday already, and I recognized some faces, so it's like a rerun. But okay, I think this time I know how to use Zoom, so that's an advantage. So we call the new feature templated configs because it's basically templates that generate configs. So Quarks secret is a component of our Quarks operator that we use to deploy kubectl on Kubernetes. And Quarks secret specifically is there to generate secrets inside the cluster, and it uses a CID, and then it the output is stored in a secret. For example, for passwords, certificates, and so on. Some of the features are like that you can bring your own secret, and it won't update it. It will just use it if it's there. That's what we use in the kubectl deployment. Like you can create all these secrets via Helm, and then Quarks secret will fill in the missing ones. And the ones you provide, like the database password or so, this will be yours until you decide to change that. Yeah, it also supports some kind of rotation, more like updates of existing secrets, so certificates can be regenerated. And we added functionality to copy secrets into other namespaces, so that you, well, if you want to use more namespaces, you have the secrets where they can be mounted. Yeah, and it works with Quarks restart, which is still in the Quarks operator. The Quarks operator being the one big operator which we started to do. This is mostly concerning now. Now it's mostly concerned with some converting BOSH manifests into Kubernetes structures. And we all these smaller components like standalone components, we extract them from the main code and make them run as separate operators, and they have separate Helm charts. So you can use Quark secret on its own. Right. So we have these secrets, and normally you would just mount them or use them as environment variables, right? Then your 12-factor app would be fine because all the configuration would be there, would be secure in environment variables, and so on and so on. But not all applications work that way. Some still require config files, or they need to read certificates from files on disk or so. So the existing situation is like this, that you have a volume, which is in reality like a reference to the secret, like here, the Gora cert. And then you can use, if you want, you can use projection to map the keys to different paths. So private key could become key, certificate. Oh, well, I didn't even change it. And you can also use subpaths as if you don't want the files in a directory, but you want them as separate files. And there's this weird thing that your pod will get updated. It will get the new secret content in the file, but only eventually. So at some point after a minute, or who knows, Kubernetes decides to update the data, except when you use a subpath. And also not for environment variables, only for files. And yeah, I guess this is well known, right? And here you can mount the secret here, like cert, you can mount it to a path. And for the environment variables, right, you can set them to static values. For example, the file path here, it's a Gora certificate, what we did mount here at the bottom. Or you can reference the key directly for the environment variable. Right, and now we want to combine those in templated configs. So to build application config files, and I think kubectl will start using this. This was the main idea for UAA. So we don't want to consume the BOSH release anymore. Instead, we want to use the native UAA release, and that somehow needs to share configuration with the existing settings from kubectl. So we are going to fill the template, the configuration file, we make a template out of it. We will fill in the values from existing secrets, and we will output the result to another secret. And secrets are always maps of string. So you have keys and values, and both are strings. So yeah, we will do this for all the keys, right? Each key can be each value of a key can be a template. So the demo I'm going to show will be using this input here, and I think it's better to switch to the terminal now and show it in the editor. So you should be able to see my terminal and the K9S on the side. Yes. Cool. And so this is the templated config. I will also create the secrets here. I will create the secret with a key named password, which has a password, and the cert, which is a cert. And then I will use private key and certificate keys from the cert. I will map them to key and to cert, and then this will live under values and can be used here in the template section of the CID. Since it's string, this is a more this is an inline YAML, and since we're using Helm templates, we can actually use Helm functions like to JSON. Yeah, and here at the top is the input data. So I'm currently running the operator here, the Quarks secret operator. So I can just take a look at Quarks secret and apply this file here. Okay. Templated config2, and you can see it's going to generate the password very fast, then the certificate, and then it will render the template. So now I can take a look at the generated secrets, and right, like the password here, for example, is what you would expect. It has a key, name, password, and then a string. The template is much more interesting because it has the described mapping here, like TLS cert and TLS key. And then the inline YAML with the array. And it has the same values again. Here's the JSON output from the debug field. Yeah, and we hope that this can also be used for more complicated configs in the future, because now with all the secrets living in, with all the credentials living in Kubernetes, we will have trouble getting Helm to read them, right? So generating those configs has to happen in cluster. We made the CID a little bit template agnostic. It's not like we really support different template types, but we could imagine that we support more than Helm if somebody likes Mustache or something. Yeah, that's it.
I have a couple questions, or at least one, just so everyone understands why the Quarks team made this and how it might be more universally useful. So this feature was designed to enable kubectl to consume the new UAA distribution, the non-BOSH release, Kubernetes release of UAA. Why is this also required for CF for K8s? If it's not, why is that different? Why is CF8 for K8s able to consume this without using this operator?
So I think when we add more native components to kubectl, we will have to provide config, and as long as the BOSH manifests and the Helm chart, right, that generates those manifests, as long as this is our single source of truth, we will have to somehow share these credentials, and at some place, right, either at deployment time or at runtime inside the cluster, we will have to generate those config files. And I could imagine that you also try to get Helm to fetch those files from the cluster, but then you have like a race condition. You have to wait for them to be generated. So it's easier to do it in cluster. For CF4K8s, so from the other direction, right? You have all native components and you have no BOSH, right? No leftover BOSH that you have to eliminate step by step. I think they generate most of their config files before when they do the YTT step, right? So they probably don't need this yet, but as more and more secrets live on the cluster and not on the disk of the deployer, that might change. I don't know.
I can speak to that a little bit. As I'm standing in as the PM for Relent, and we are evaluating Quarks secret and a couple of the standalone components they have or will have very soon, Quarks job and the Quarks restart that can restart pods in order to move the management of secrets into the cluster.
This makes me very happy. Thank you, Paul. Because I'd like to see this work being used as widely as I can. And thanks, Mario, for showing that. Were there any more questions about the feature? Okay, thank you, presenters. I hope everyone stays safe. I know some of us are in fire zones, some of us have limited air quality. We're all dealing with COVID madness. So stay safe, be kind, all those good things. And thank you for joining us this week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.